All right, guys, we might make a start. Thanks very much for making time. I know it's, Rob and I were talking about it before, it's a balancing act at these sort of events when all the coaches and staff are so busy, you know, coaching and preparing, and then, of course, looking after, supervising, running around kids, finding the balance to slide in some education for you, the people that are really investing so heavily in the players and the event. So do respect and appreciate you coming along. We're going to talk about a few things today. First couple are about feedback. It's a really challenging environment for youth coaches in particular, or any coach really. It's something that that we as a sport probably haven't done all that well. It's, you know, quick story, I've got a friend in the AFL and I was asking him about feedback and how they can do it, and he said, well, if you've got some examples from basketball that you can send to me, and I can have a look. So I sent him about 7 templates, and I rang him about 3 days later and said, what do you think? He goes, well, firstly, these are all awful. And I said, well, hold it, I wrote all of them. And he said, secondly, these are the mistakes we've been making for 30 years as well in our sport, all right, and this is what we've gone to. So there's some learnings from that environment. The second bit will be about taking on feedback as a coach, and I know that all the states do a great job in providing some development and feedback through this event in particular. I think it's one of the highlights and strengths of the event. You know, how are you as a coaching cohort about taking on information and using that feedback to drive your development and your coaching craft? And the last one, we'll touch on managing a coaching staff. It's interesting now at all levels of the sport. It's how old I am. I was telling someone today, I went to my first nationals as a coach in and I was the assistant coach and the manager. There was the coach and myself. That was it. That was the whole staff. And I thought I was a brilliant coach. So I said, I'm not doing laundry and stuff like that. And the coach said, well, you're not coming. I said, oh, I'm okay with laundry. All right. So, you know, now there's more, which is great. But have we got the tools? Have we got the structures in place to manage these bigger staff? If you look at Opals and Boomers, there's literally more staff than players. And it's interesting with it, when we get onto it, you know, I said to Brian, you've got too many staff. You know, you've got 14 staff, you've got 12 players. He goes, well, who do you want me to get rid of? And I said, well, let's go through their roles. He went through all their roles, and 90% of the roles were player focused. So he said, I asked you again, who do you want me to get rid of? I said, no one, will find the money. Right? But we also need to find systems to manage that. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to use a lot of questioning, and hopefully I don't have deathly silence. You know, it's a bit interactive. We'll go for about an hour because I know that you guys have got other things that you need to get done. So providing feedback, and often at these events, right, or similar, or if you're coaching a rep team, you know, whether it's VJBL or district basketball in SA or whatever it is, there's a requirement by the organisation to provide some feedback. And usually they're awful templates, like those 7 I sent my friend, right? And usually it's the last thing that we do as a coach. And usually we go, oh, Jill Smith, work on non-dominant hand, right? All those chestnut bits of feedback that really don't mean anything. We had one camp many years ago, and the feedback for the great Laura Somerton was need to run the floor. So I don't know if people know who Laura Somerton is or was. It's now Laura Hodges. She's probably the best floor running 4 in the history of Australian basketball, right? So this person just, oh, I'll just put that because all 4s need to run. So of course, how much credence did that feedback have for her? None, because, you know, she knows what she can do. So Have a plan and communicate the plan. What will be included and prioritised? Let the players know, and when I say players, you can also put a bracket around that parents, because they, often they want the feedback more than the athlete. But have great clarity. The great Brian Gorgian, one of the greatest coaching sayings of all time. Clarity is the new clever. Don't try and be smart, just try and be clear. And feedback is really important, right? That there's clarity. Don't go into word gymnastics. Just give some clarity that's going to be meaningful and it's going to have an effect on that player of any age. How will it be formatted and presented? Dot point is king, right? Or some people call it bullet point. You don't need to write chapter and verse around that. Most people live in the dot point environment now, right? Particularly young people, right? And the more that you try and fluff it up and flower it up by using all the, you get the thesaurus out and, the less meaningful it'll be, all right? So dot point is king. The key with that too is communicate to your staff about those two things. How's it going to be formatted and presented, and what are we prioritising? Then, if people go away from that, whack them. Not physically, figuratively, right? But whack them. No, this is what we're doing, all right? Darren Perry, who many of you would know, coached a lot of state teams, a lot of SCABL and whatever else. One of his great strengths was that clarity and feedback, right? And having all the staff on the same page with that. Right? This is how we're writing it, this is the language we're using, and this is the format. And he'd have coaches give him their feedback and he'd say, no, go away, come back and do it again. Right? Until everyone had that messaging and that consistency in place. And then who'll receive it and when? Usually we paint ourselves, we either paint ourselves or our fearless leaders paint us into a corner saying every player will receive feedback within 5 days of the tournament. By the end of the tournament, everyone will have individual feedback, written feedback. How realistic is that? Right? You're putting pressure on yourself, and there's a fair chance that you're going to dial it in. Not because you don't care, because you wouldn't be here, right? Giving up a week of your leave, giving up another evening, driving from all parts of Greater Melbourne if you didn't care, right? So, but just be realistic on who'll receive it. If it's for the players and then you expect them to share it with their parents, just provide clarity with that, right? Communicate that. That's half the battle that we have, we being BA, and we don't do this very well at all. We're going through this process now, is we do feedback, we send it to someone or somewhere, and it's like a pirate cove. It's never to be seen again, all right? And that leads to frustration. So make sure there's great clarity around who's receiving the feedback. If that's a director of coaching, it should always be athlete-centered and athlete-focused, of course. Parent, if there's a director of coaching or if there's another layer, just make it very clear that this is who's going to see it. But also who will receive it and when should impact how you write it. Players don't like to be embarrassed. In fact, no human being likes to be embarrassed, but players and players of this generation in particular don't like to be embarrassed or seen to be singled out. They've got a high fairness proposition, young players. Well, hold it, that's not fair, all right? So make sure when you're doing it, if it is going to others, right, one, you ask/advise the athlete that they're comfortable with that, all right, and write it with the target audience in mind. Big one, and I know the BV guys went through this, and Jenny Screen did a great job in establishing this. Establish a rubric. In other words, what What are you going to say? What are you not going to say? And that allows for that clarity as well. And we'll go through some examples in a minute. All right. But, you know, we have our major pathway camp next week, and the coaches will do feedback, and we've given them a rubric already. There'll be some coaches that'll do 2 dot points per skill or concept area. And then there'll be some coaches that'll give us 6 typed word pages in 10 point. All right, and we've got to try and figure out so now we have a rubric. This is how we want you to do it. The thing about having a rubric is it gives you, again, clarity, but it's also linked to metrics, data. Right, and I'll show you some examples. And one of the examples that we've really leaned into, the Sydney Swans Academy, and no, I'm not a Sydney supporter, only fools would be. Is that right, Jalen? Right. My son's a Sydney supporter. Is in their academy system, it's the best academy system in all of football, right? When they evaluate players and they have 400 or 500 kids go through it, right? They all get evaluated, they all get feedback, and it's all data driven. They get a score on every skill and concept. So there's clarity. And then there's a bandwidth. In essence, you know, 72's an A, you know, this, you know, and they do that. So the reason they put it in, and Leon Cameron has driven it, is they had to employ someone previously to handle complaints about and bloody AFL. Oh, we're getting all these complaints. Oh, we'll just employ someone. We don't get to do that, right? But they literally had to employ staff to do it. Now, right, they've got it and they go, no, that's the data. Here's how the structure, whatever, we communicated it prior, we communicated it during, we communicated it post. Respectfully, goodbye. Right? It'd be nice if we could do that. But if you don't have data, if you don't have some sort of measure, there's going to be debate. And really, not that you want to win the debate, but I tell you what, the person on the other end of the phone only has one desire and one desire only: win the debate. All right? So we need to have that. Be concise. Again, bullet points is king. And feedback is not a critique. Make sure that you want to look with a critiquing eye always. You want to provide insightful, meaningful critique to players, but feedback is not a critique. It's not necessarily you do this well, you do this poorly, right? That's not what feedback is. Feedback is more about the development journey than anything else. Yes, you need to identify areas they need to work on, but there's a big difference between identifying weaknesses and areas to work on. One of the new buzz terms in business is work-ons. Here's your positives and here's your work-ons, right? Now, you might think it's semantics, but it's a lot more development focused than weaknesses. So the evidence-based approach, lean into data where possible, and, you know, I'm sure in your various work environments, you hear it all the time, we need an evidence-based approach and we need to lean into the data and all those things, all right? Our sport was a leader in data for a long time, then we got lazy, we being the collective sport. We were the first Australian sport really to lean into statistics, keep in-game statistics, like 20 or 30 years in front of football. When I say football, I mean AFL, all right? Now, if you look at champion data and what football's done again with resources, it's almost overload, all right? But make sure that you've got some data to back up the coach's eye. The coach's eye is still the single most important thing in all of coaching, what you see. You've got vast experience, and there's a lot of people here that coach national championships and coach professionally. That's crucial. The coach's eye is still crucial. Never allow analytics or data to override that. use data and analytics to support that, all right? And you think, oh, well, I coach the Warrandyte, fives or whatever it may be. Find a way to get some data. My daughter's playing in Albury at the moment, and they're coming second a lot by a fair margin, right? But the coach is using some data, and it's hard to use just raw data. Like made baskets, you line through that one, right? Turnovers, RSI, right? But he's been able to structure what things look like and put a priority and clarity, and now he can use it as a tool to, one, give the kids some wins, which is hard when you're getting beaten by a significant amount, right? But also give them some feedback. So don't think it has to be, high level, like Instat or Synergy or anything like that, but make sure that you've got some measures. Really simple measure for youth coaches is a practice attendance roll, all right? I'm amazed how few junior coaches don't take attendance, because eventually you get the shits that someone's not coming to practice, so they don't start, right? Or their minutes diminish. And of course, mum comes up and goes, oh, well, how come, Luke's not playing? Well, he hasn't been coming to practice. Yes, he has. All right? This is where, no, he hasn't. Doesn't work. All right? Well, he has. It's been consistent. So it's good that we have this conversation. So here's the role. He's attended 2 of the last 8. All right? Now, that might give you an opportunity to have a conversation. Oh, yeah, his father's been sick, he's been, whatever else. Okay, great. I wasn't aware of that, and we can move. But I think that's a big one. Take attendance roles at every level. Use of scores, rankings, or Likert scales. Just have some sort of measure. We do it all the time in strength and conditioning. What's the most used data in strength and conditioning at all levels, right? It's RPE, where we ask the athlete, how do you think that was? One being you didn't get your heart rate above 50, 10 being you've just ran the Kokoda Trail, somewhere in the middle of that. But we ask them at every level, right? So make sure that you've got some system for that. The eyes, ears and numbers approach, and it's made famous, I guess, by the Spurs. If you're going to write meaningful feedback, ask some questions, right? And you think, well, that's fine here. I'm here for 4 days. I've never met these kids. Da da da. Well, lean into your state and territory guys and go, hey, what's the skinny on Lisa Jones? What I always ask, and there's people in this room today that would know, and I've probably asked them today. My favourite one is, where's that kid from? What club are they from? What town are they from? I've got a bias towards regional or country kids, so I want to know what their story is, all right? And then, they say, oh, they play at Kilsyth. Oh, is Mark Watkins still there? Yeah. Well, you know that all of a sudden you're doing your own little scout and getting some data or some information that you can weave into your feedback later on. It's a bit of a cheat start. So what do you see? We spoke about that. The coach's eyes is most important. Don't ever devalue that, right? Ears, ask questions and listen, all right? And it doesn't have to be anything drilling down. It's not an interrogation, but just ask questions. Who's coached a player that's really laconic and it looks like they've got, quote unquote, bad body language, right? Yeah. And a lot of the time you figure out, right, that what you actually see is not who they are, what they are, and whatever else, right? So again, ask some questions, right? Hey, that player doesn't look like they're into it. No, you wait till the ball goes up, they'll be a killer. Okay, that's important. Because you know what that's done? Manage your bias. All right? Just because some kid's not, clapping in every drill and whatever else, doesn't mean they're not into it. Don't make assumptions. And the best way to avoid making assumptions, ask questions, right? And there doesn't have to be a million of them, all right? If you know that a kid plays in a certain, this is for the regional guys, if I know there's a kid from Wagga, in New South Wales, I'm going to say, Owie, who we've known for 30 years, say, what's that Wagga kid like, right? Not, is he an arsehole or whatever else, but shoots it really well, or sometimes shoots it every time he gets it. Okay, we can work with that for 2 minutes, all right? And then the numbers, that's the measure, right? Make sure that you've got some metrics so you can do it. Discipline with the rubric, avoid going off script. If there's a rubric, use it. And I know we've got some educators in the room, and obviously it's a significant educational tool, all right? So again, if you're not sure, ask teachers, right? In this stuff, in all the learning, my father was a school principal most of his life. My mother was an English history teacher. My wife's a school principal. If I want to know about giving feedback, they all have to do it every term or every semester for 250 kids, right? There might be something there. So lean into that, but I'd really encourage you to develop your own or put pressure on your states and territories to have something that'll help you in this. This is a part of ours now, and you can see there's 1 to 6. And anyone that knows anything about Likert scales, 1 to 6, not 1 to 5. Why is it not 1 to 5? What's the most common ranking on a 1 to 5? 3. Yeah, they're okay. 3. They're okay at this too. Yeah, they're okay at this. They're not very good, but yeah, they're still okay. We'll put 3, right? And so it forces you, the coaches, to make a decision. And however you want to structure this bit, we think now, we're using this next week at our camp, we think this is too wordy already, all right? And we've been into it, doing a lot of work with it for the last 6 months. We're about to roll it out, and I've called that, I think, that's too wordy. Right, but that's okay. We'll chip away and go from there. But what the big thing is this. Score. All right? Initially we called it total, or I can't remember the word we used. And again, our AFL friends said, no, score. What did they score? Right? It's funny now with young kids, you're doing a shooting drill or a competitive drill and you go, what's the score? How often do they not know? All right? And you just go, how do you not know? Who's coached one of those uber competitive kids? You go, what's the score? And they say, 7-5. And you look at them funny and they go, no. Jenna made a shot there, then Scott made one there, and they had the pull up there, and we got an offensive rebound there. I challenged Christy Harrell one time in my life. So what's the score? She said 6-4. I said, bullshit it is. It's the silliest thing I've ever done. I only did it once. I learned. I gave myself feedback. Do not challenge her, okay? But, and we can give the full example of that document, but I think it's really important that you arrive at a score. And one of the challenges that the Swans had, their feedback was people would be so wound up about the score, because they have a ranking then, like what this score is this score is it. And of course, a kid would fall from this level to this. Don't worry about it. A score's better than no score, all right? And you're not, so it can be challenging, but we've run some tests on this. It's more time consuming than what we've done in the past, for sure. But what we did in the past was horse shit. So rather than just say the horse shit is fine, let's have a little bit of pain and go from there. Who's really comfortable in giving feedback? Who doesn't find it challenging? Yeah? How can you give us a brief example about how you do tend to provide it?
Just in the past, I've sort of found, I've done a similar stuff with this because I had Meltdowner at Best Country at one stage, so it was very similar setup to this, and we had to give feedback. But I also do a couple of, I call them obviously positives and areas for improvement, and it's just basically 3 clear dot points of things that they've done well if it's like a sport improvement, and just sort of individually face-to-face break those dot points down, and then same with the sort of areas for improvement. They're not necessarily things they're doing poorly, it's just things that will really help them elevate their game to that next step.
Yep.
And that's something I've just found works. The players seem to be really receptive to it in terms of taking it on board and going out and implementing it.
Yep, and I think too, the key sentence there was something I've really found has worked. So if you latch onto something, any sort of system, whether it's a template or anything that you're comfortable with, stay with it and then try and spread the wealth, because you're good for you, respectfully. And Mel did a truckload of stuff on that for us. No one else put their hand up and said, yeah, they were comfortable with doing it or they do it well or whatever. And I think you're all selling yourself too short. I know there's, elite educators in the room that do this on a daily, but it's difficult. So that's why one of the things that Rob and the crew wanted to talk about, how can we improve it? So take notes ongoing. I'm always amazed how few coaches have notepads, notebooks, whatever else. Some have moved on to Remarkables. However, it is, it's hard to provide meaningful data-driven feedback if you don't take ongoing notes or make at least ongoing observations. If that's in your phone, that's fine. All right. But yeah, I think that's important, and Coach touched on that. And it's ongoing notes, and you use the word conversations. If you're finding any aspect of coaching challenging, 2 words: more conversations. All right, if there's an area that you're really struggling with, more conversations. More conversations with who? First point of call. Players. Ask players what they think, what they see. You're not asking them to be a coach. You're not asking them to even coach you, right? But I wish I didn't learn it so late in my coaching life, right? So if you're unsure, just engage in more conversation. Ask players, get their insight. Then ask other coaches, ask people from other walks of life. Coach other sports, teachers, right? Law enforcement, medicos are great, physios and doctors. Why? They have to, right? What's a big word in medicine or in the medical fields? Diagnostic, right? You want to ask diagnostic questions. Try and get to the source as much as you can, all right? But that's a big one. But players are golden. And I'm sure everyone's got stories, and I won't bore you with the ones I have, about where you've really learnt from players, or you've had an epiphany from a player. They've just said something in a practice or a game or a timeout, and it's like the stadium roof has come and there's a beam of light from above, all right? And after you go, God, I'm a bad basketball coach, then you move on doing what you're doing, all right? So, and don't see that as, don't be sensitive to that. If a player, particularly one of your better players, is wanting to help you and give you feedback, see that as a massive positive, because there's a trust in that. There's a trust in them doing it, because we know the hierarchy. Coaches have got the natural hierarchy, yet someone's willing to do that. There's probably gold in there. Build the feedback throughout the event. So here, don't wait until whatever night it finishes and your HP guy's hammering you. We need that feedback, we need that feedback. You're like, oh, here we go. Work on non-dominant hand. Shot technique. We've got some elite players in the room, and I'm sure that you've got some feedback in there. You're like, This guy's kidding, aren't they? All right? So don't put yourself under that pressure. So take those notes. Conversations with your athletes to get their insights, all right, is really, really important. We spoke about that. Staff and colleagues as sounding boards. Any open-ended question is really powerful in this. Jimmy, what are you seeing? All right? And then the big one, be quiet and wait for a response. Don't prompt or guide the response, just ask that, and often you'll get an epiphany out of that. And embrace, who enjoys doing athlete feedback? Who goes, yes, when you get a template and you come to these events and you've got to have it in by 9 o'clock Sunday? Who goes, this is the coolest thing ever? No one? Okay. Do you have your hand up, coach? Yeah. But that's your nature. It has been, we've known each other, 25 years, you know. There's a strong desire to help, strong desire to get someone better, right? But turn the narrative, flip it. Hey, here's my opportunity. We say it all the time to players at the COE, right? You don't have to come to training, you get to come to training. You don't have to go to weights, you get to go to weights, all right? And sometimes when it gets down to it, you don't have to be here, but it's not a threat because we follow it up. You get to be here, all right? So see if you can flip the narrative and find ways to do it, play around with it, and then please, 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 if you have success, if you find something, share it with those around you, all right? I use this all the time, and I'm sorry for people like Al who've been listening to me talk shit for 20 plus years, right? The great Lindsay Gaze, learn it one day, teach it the next. Learn it one day, teach it the next. So if you learn something about that, share it with your club, share it with your coaching cohort and whatever else. That's how we grow what we're doing. Show of hands. Who enjoys receiving meaningful feedback about their coaching? Hands down. Now, honestly, who enjoys receiving meaningful feedback about their coach? Don't put your hands up. But, of course, that's one question where most people's hands go up, right? Got to make sure that we live it, because we expect the players to do it. We've just waffled for half an hour about how we can do that for players. And we expect players to do it, take on feedback. We expect players to handle disappointment, non-selection or change your role or court time or whatever it is. Are we really, as a cohort, embracing feedback? All right? And the answer is yes and no. All right? Or this is how cool I am. The answer is 6, 7. All right? Who's got a defense mechanism when they first get feedback, particularly if it's a critical nature? Be honest. It doesn't mean you tell people to go themselves, but who goes into fight or flight? Honestly. Okay, right? And it's challenging sometimes, particularly as you go through the ranks, national teams, professionally, it's awful. Their feedback is, don't come Monday. You're a good coach yesterday, but now you're a shit coach, you've got to go. It doesn't make a lot of sense, all right? So the real feedback lives outside the comfort zone. Most people are really accepting of feedback within their comfort zone, but when it's something a little bit uncomfortable, that's when that's a bit of fight or flight. So we've got to be able to open up and desensitize ourselves to that. Do you seek meaningful feedback or simply affirmation? Hey, you're doing a great job. Right? Thanks for what you're doing. You're really doing a great job. I love that practice. And all of a sudden you're into it. What I did is I designed this and I used some of this, and I agree, it was phenomenal. All right? And that's okay too, because we need affirmation. And here's one for you. And Guy Malloy, who I still think's one of the best coaches I've ever been around, he's a Riverina guy, so he's got a head start. But he said to me, he said, you know what? Sometimes coaches just need, hey man, you're doing a good job. Because sometimes you get to a level, you're the head coach, you're a highly respected, successful head coach, you stop hearing it. People just stop doing, I don't need, he's coached 400 games, I don't need to say, hey man, stay at it. All right, hey man, I love what you're doing. So be part of that to providing that affirmation. But there's a difference between meaningful feedback and simply affirmation. All right, and that's the comfort zone thing. Affirmation will be in your comfort zone. When people tell you you're good at something, you know that already because you've lent into it. All right? So it's like reading. For years, I read every basketball and probably gridiron and AFL coach's biography or book known to man, right? I haven't read one probably in 4 years, and I'm trying, because that's my comfort zone. Okay, it's Krzyzewski, it's Williams, it's Messina, it's Bradovic, okay, phenomenal. But how much is it moving the needle, right? So I had to teach myself, read outside my comfort zone. How do you really respond to feedback? What's your first response? Whether it's verbal response, physical response, whatever else. I met with a coach early this week, and he sort of ambushed me and wanted some feedback. So when I said the first thing, he stepped back. I noticed he literally stepped back. So I thought, okay, so then I provided affirmation. I'm not bullshitting you. Right? Now it's an unconscious response, but what's your unconscious response? Again, fight or flight. Are you looking to embrace, or are you looking to deflect? Is it wax on or is it wax off? Most of you won't know that reference, right? And again, I'm an old guy, all right? And it's interesting, referees receive, the culture within the refereeing ranks is one of feedback, and it has been for 1,000,000 years, right? They're always getting, remember the old days, they used to get the ref crit, after it, and they'd have to sit down and go through every single call, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Now they've evolved, but you don't go to an event where the referees aren't getting constant coaching and feedback, and it's an accepted culture. They don't run away from it. Now, we all have a whack at officials every now and then, but we could learn so much from referees about how they do that, and they're very good at articulating it. For those AFL people in the room, I couldn't stand Razor Ray as a umpire. I don't know why, it's just what you do. You don't like him. I follow Collingwood, so the two come together, right? I love him as an analyst. He just speaks common sense, and then when guys challenge him, like the former players challenge him, he goes, oh, this, and this. Not this, and he just goes, oh, this, and this. And usually, even guys with big egos go, yeah, that's fair. That makes sense, all right? So think about how you're conditioned to respond to feedback and critique. I just finished reading this book, talking about reading 10 seconds or less. Zach Brown is the CEO of McLaren Formula One. They just won the championship, and he's turned them around. They were basically insolvent when he started. And they said, he was interviewed, and they said, if you put your finger on one thing that's turned McLaren around, he said, I'll give you two things. First one, me, right? Confident SOB, right? And he wasn't being sarcastic. Secondly, feedback. Single most important word in our organisation, right? Another story, Gary Pert, as you know, terrific player, and then terrific businessmen, terrific CEO of football clubs and whatever else. When he got to Collingwood, he said to the membership guy, we need to get to 90,000 members. I want you to go away. This is maybe 15 years ago. I want you to go away and come back in 2 weeks with how we can get to 90,000 members. Now, in those days, 50,000 members was the gold standard, wasn't it? Gold standard. The guy went away, came back 2 weeks later, PowerPoint presentation of why you couldn't do it. Why you couldn't do it. Presented to the board for 1 hour on why it couldn't be done. Gary Pert sacked him in the meeting. And he said, I didn't have any issue at all, because then I took him out to lunch and I gave him feedback to hopefully help him improve and whatever else. Now like even shit clubs like Carlton have got 90,000 members. All right? Because they just changed the narrative. They just changed the narrative about how they do members and whatever else. And that's what he was trying to do. This guy, the other guy, went on to drive the Big Bash for 10 years, which is probably the single most successful sporting organisation in Australia, right? So Gary said it was a real positive. It was a win-win. You know, now that there's a bit of arrogance to that, but it just goes to show feedback can be the foundation of what you're trying to do. So tips are using feedback as a development tool. Bob Myers, the 4-time championship general manager, Golden State Warriors. I'm just being curious, I'm not being critical. So he would go to the coaches and say, Steve, why did you bench Steph in the third quarter when they were on a run? And of course, Steve would want to fight him. You pay me to coach the team and you know, whatever else. And so Bob would walk away and go, oh, what just happened? All right? And he did it again, and then, you know, someone would want to fight him. And he said, no, whoa. I'm just being curious. I'm not being critical. And he said that was an epiphany then, that they could have any conversation they had, as long as he was true to his word. It came from curiosity and the desire to know rather than critique. So when people are providing you feedback, just think that. They're not being curious. They're not being critical, right? They're being curious. We spoke about that. Don't always look for affirmation. Out of your comfort zone. Who's a really, really good zone offensive coach? Hands up. Good, we've got no liars. Because no one is, right? It's a weakness of our sport. We don't play much zone, so then we suck at it offensively and whatever else. We'll lean into it. Go and find someone that is good at that. Get some feedback. Show them what you do. Talk to them about it and get them to pull it apart. You're the one that's doing it. You're seeking it. You're not seeking affirmation. Hey, do you like my end-line play? Fantastic. Go and see them and see if you can get that done. And ask lots of questions. That's an obvious one. The most successful people on this planet are great question askers. All right, that's not a word. Damien Cotter, fellow Victorian. When I say fellow Victorian, I'm not Victorian, just want to clear that. The quality of your conversations will be defined by the quality of your questions. The quality of your conversation will be defined by the quality of your question. If you ask great questions, all right, that's really going to help drive your improvement and how you use feedback. So if someone gives you feedback and you don't understand it, ask, what do you mean by that? My favourite one is, can you unpack that? Just so you can get them to, and then that's when you provide them affirmation. Great point, I never thought about it that way. That's really helped me. I think that's going to help me tomorrow when we play Queensland North. Because that's a big one. Don't seek affirmation, but provide plenty of it. Provide plenty of it, to your coaching peers and whatever else. All right. Big one here. No BCD. when it comes to receiving feedback, and it also is important when you're looking to provide feedback. We've banned at the COE, right? We had another acronym, CFP. Can't play, right? And it's thrown around like, oh, I can't fucking play, right? We banned it. Don't say it anymore. The kids we're looking at, the kids we're dealing with, they can all play. So let's get rid of that out of our mindset. And it's linked to this. No BCD. Don't blame someone else. Someone's providing you feedback. Oh yeah, but they stack the other team. All right? And the person's thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to give you some feedback. And so don't blame something or something else. Don't complain. Oh yeah, we were meant to train, but then we got there and we only had a half court and the ring was shit and what no one's interested. And their willingness to provide any sort of feedback is gone poof, as soon as you blame or complain, and the D's cut off their defend. Oh yeah, but what you've got to understand, I say it now because I have to provide a lot of feedback, and it's not always easy. I don't do a very good job of it. I said to a coach early in the week, they said, oh, what you've got to understand. I said, hold right there. I don't have to understand shit. Not to be Terry Tough Guy, but just make it clear. Let's have a conversation, but don't start trying to frame how that conversation's going to work to suit your narrative. So just think about that. No BCD. Don't blame, don't complain, don't defend when it comes to providing or, in particular, receiving feedback. Managing and coaching staff. Again, more conversations, and those that sort of been around me in recent times, I'm the WhatsApp antichrist. I hate it. All right? I'm currently a unwilling participant in 17 WhatsApp groups. From national teams to coaching groups to my son's football club to... No one talks to each other anymore. We have national teams go away, kids late for breakfast, right? So if they're late for breakfast, what's probably happened? They've slept in. Oh, send them a WhatsApp message. Yeah, that'll work, all right? That'll wake them up and get them to come. All right? Or you could walk the 72 metres, knock on the door, have a conversation and find out that they're sick or whatever else. So more conversations with it. Yeah, the WhatsApp groups, I know they're I was going to say they're necessary. I can't come at that, all right? But not everything's a WhatsApp group or some sort of... And just remember, because you're all busy people and successful people in your professions, I realised one day that I'd received information in 12 different formats in one day across different ones. Every time we have someone new start at BA, right? I'm the old crusty guy on the porch yelling at clouds. Everyone's got great ideas. So we're all using Slack. Now we're not using that, we're using Teams, but some are still using Slack and some are using WhatsApp and some are ringing. It's just crazy. So just lean into more conversations. Role clarity and role consistency. Damien Hardwick, we've been lucky enough to spend some time with him at the Gold Coast Suns. Obviously, he's multi-premiership coach. Gold Coast, everyone knows exactly their role. Right? It's written, it's communicated, there's signs up. Right? They've got a great sign. Backs, mids, forwards. It's a big poster. Backs, right? And at the top of it, to get a game. To get a game. Backs, there's like 5 things. Do these 5 things, you give yourself a chance to get a game. Mids, do these 5 things, you give yourself a chance to... It's everywhere. The role clarity is elite. So they're a high-functioning group. They're a really high-functioning group. And then you throw in some talent and look what they're able to achieve. So make sure that you lean into that. Because how often, you're probably better Christians than I am. How often as a head coach have you had the shits that someone hasn't done anything, all right? And you're like, oh, I haven't even done this. It's like one effing job. And then you realise, I haven't asked them to do it. Or we spoke about it, but we never said, right, Jack, you're on this, you good? And then get out of the goddamn road, right? Don't buy a dog and bark for it. Give them a task, get out of the road, check in, provide affirmation, but that's really important. Processes for practice and games. And Ash is in the room, Ash Arnott, and he did such an elite job when he was with us at the Centre of Excellence. You didn't have to ask him to write the teams up on the board. You didn't have to ask him to split those teams into 3-on-3 teams and this, that and the other. You know, if there was a third jersey required for practice, because you know head coaches, they're lunatics, right? Every one of them. So they decide, we need a third colour, we need a third colour. And then everyone's running around like, Ash had got the third colour like 6 days ago and put it there. You know, so make sure that, that you've got great clarity around what the roles are. Excuse me, who does what? Big one, who speaks when? If your staff is bigger, you've got to make sure that not everyone's doing it. I don't know, Jenna, if Tom did this when you played for him, but I know when he was coaching China, he used to talk about one last voice. One last voice. So out of the timeout, if it was Timsy, it's Timsy. You know what I mean? So you have the timeout, and then you know you've got 5 assistants, and they're all going, oh yeah, and make sure you do this, this, and this. No, one last voice. Now that might be the head coaches, and then, or it might be someone who just provides calmness or whatever, but clarity about who provides what messaging is really, really important. Who speaks when, and that's not about meritocracy or being an autocrat or whatever else. Who speaks when? One of the silliest questions, and I'm sure that if this has happened to you, and if not, it's going to bite you on the arse. End of practice, the most overrated thing in the world. Coach talks about how practice went and you know whatever else. The players aren't listening, all right? But we do it anyway, because whatever. Then we double down. You got 3 assistants. Jared, you got anything? He's a coach. Of course he's got something. All right? So he adds his thing, and you're thinking, oh, I didn't really want to go there. But then we've got to go, oh, Jack, you got anything? And by now you're like absolutely shitting yourself what's going to be said here, right? And then, you know, finally you get to be, hey, Bill, have you got anything? Right? And you can really undo a lot of things here. And you know, so just be mindful. It's not about not giving them a voice. The when is really important. The when, you know, we use a thing now called the reset. When players go to a drink during practice, right, we don't give it a time limit anymore. You know, 12 seconds, you know, guy's got indigestion because he's swallowed half his power. You know, let him go and have a drink. No coach go near him. It's not time for coaching now. It's time for hydration and reset. Right? Let them, the great, and I say great, Craig McRae, talks about reverse white line fever. You know what white line fever means? Step over the line and we're going to go. Step over this side of the line, just calm, reset, get your heart rate down, get some water, then maybe talk to a teammate, then maybe talk to an assistant coach. Since we've been doing it, it's created a huge advantage with clarity, right? Because we send them to a drink, we're yelling at them, they come back, their heart rate's actually gone up, and then you send them for a break, right? Or that really keen coach, you know, you're off to get a drink. Oh, Luke, just while you get a drink, all right? He's thinking, leave me alone, right? But we do it because we want to help so bad. You know how you can help? Just stay over here, all right? We spoke about consistent final voice and allow a runway for people to thrive in their role. All right, so be okay with someone offering, even though I said about that end of practice, be okay if someone throws something out there to the group that's not quite, because it's probably your fault because lack of consistency of messaging. So it's not time to correct it. And it's not even time to correct it after by grabbing someone aside and say, hey, Jared, that's not where we want to go. What I'm going to do the next day, say, how do you think yesterday went? How do you think our wrap-up went? And usually they will have thought that, yeah, maybe I was on the Toorak tram to Broadmeadows. And that's okay. You can get on another tram, come back, right? So, you know, I think that's really important. Allow them the runway to do it. Last thing. Seek, provide affirmation of, and embrace expertise. What areas are you not good at? Zone offense, everyone in the room, go and get someone that knows zone O. All right? Free throws are the biggest skill deficiency in all of Australian youth basketball. All right? I'm having conversations with Ray Tomlinson. I'm having conversations with Rex Nottage. I'm having conversations with Sandy Brondello. People with lived experience to do it well, right? Rather than me think, oh, you know, I'm going to make something up, all right? So make sure that you seek, provide affirmation of, all right, and embrace expertise. Probably the biggest area we've done that is sports science. We don't question sports science people. We know they're the expert. We give them their runway to do it. Yet coaches, we put them in a box. We don't give them their runway. So if you really want to have a high-functioning staff, make sure that you give them the space to do it. Who's a fan or an advocate of having, you see it now in the NBL, Boomers even did it, last play and the assistant runs the timeout and comes up with the last play. Firstly, who would do that in a high pressure situation? Anyone? Couple? Yeah. It gives me hives, right? It gives me hives when it happens. Mate, you're Brian Gorgian. Get that guy and throw him to the shithouse. But there's the best of all times gone, you know what? I'm not an expert here. This guy is. Let them be the expert. And that's why he's the best. Humility and understanding and being ahead of the J-curve. So, guys, thank you. Huge thank you to Rob. I've said this publicly and privately many times. Rob's, along with Jared Moore from New South Wales, the gold standard in coach developers, and done it over a long period of time. Really always keen to help coaches at every level and was really keen to provide you guys with something. Hopefully you got some things out of it. Rob and the guys will share the slides for what it's worth. If there's anything you want to unpack or you want more information, I was saying to Alan before, bullshit's not a problem. I got a whole computer full of it so I can send it out to you. But well done. This is a great event in a great facility, the gold standard of facilities. So enjoy it, embrace all the things we've spoken about, and just remember the players are the single most important group here.